Gentili signore, egregi signori, cari amici della delegazione di Chicago Fire Football Club, a poche ore dall'inebriante vittoria di ieri, a nome della Football Club Lugano SA, io ho il piacere di porgervi il benvenuto a questa conferenza stampa che ritengo di poter definire come straordinaria. Grazie innanzitutto dell'interesse che mostrate all'FC Lugano. Straordinaria, dicevo, la straordinarietà la assicura la presenza graditissima e prestigiosa di Joe Mansueto, proprietario unico del Football Club Lugano, al quale ho il privilegio di porgere il più cordiale benvenuto. Lo saluto, benvenuto a questo incontro con la stampa che lo vedrà tra pochi istanti protagonista, e lo ringrazio già sin d'ora per la sua squisita disponibilità. Un benvenuto Joe Mansueto. Un benvenuto e grazie anche alla signora Maria Cristina Cresto, che assicura la traduzione simultanea italiano-inglese e inglese-italiano, canale 1 per l'italiano, canale 2 per l'inglese. Penso vi siate tutti dotati delle cuffie per la traduzione simultanea. Un saluto anche ai nostri tifosi, che sono verosimilmente tanti, credo oggi collegati in diretta sui nostri canali social per la nostra diretta streaming. Buongiorno e bentrovati anche a voi. Per quanto riguarda il modo di procedere, è quello direi classico, procediamo per alzata di mano, chi vuole porre una domanda si segnali per tempo, fate uso del microfono che vi verrà consegnato da Emanuela da una parte e da Alessia dall'altro, grazie anche per il loro aiuto. Presentatevi per cortesia in modo chiaro, nome, cognome e la testata che rappresentate. Credo di aver detto tutto, parola a voi, serve evidentemente qualcuno che rompa il ghiaccio, vediamo a chi tocca questo onore.
Buongiorno, Storello Sebastiano, la regione, benvenuto, bentornato in Ticino, e tanto per rompere il ghiaccio, come diceva Marzio, magari come ha visto la partita ieri, che Lugano ha visto, e come è stato il suo soggiorno qui da noi.
Well, good morning, everyone. I didn't quite hear the translation in my headset here, but let me just begin by welcoming everyone. Good morning. Thank you very much for spending time with us this morning. We know you're busy, and we appreciate your attendance. And it's wonderful to be here in Lugano, so thank you. Buongiorno tutti. And I look forward to your questions. So unfortunately, I did not hear that translation. So I may have to wait till someone translates that. Apologies. Okay, that I can understand. What kind of match did I see yesterday? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the team for providing a victory as a backdrop to this press conference. It makes it a lot easier. But it was a very exciting match. I mean, I think we're very proud to have won the game yesterday against the defending champions, Young Boys. I thought the team played exceedingly well. It was a very exciting match. Wonderful goals by Ali Seda, Mahmoud, and Saipi had a couple of wonderful saves. But they're a difficult side, Young Boys. Again, defending champions. So it was a very hard-fought match, and it was a big win for the club. So just a great experience in the stadium, too, the supporters, the atmosphere. So I had a wonderful time, and it was great to see the club emerge with a victory.
Fatevi avanti, per favore, con un'alzata di mano per rendere un po' più fluida la cosa, magari anticipando anche l'intenzione di porre una domanda con un gesto.
Dominik Wirth, NZZ, from Zurich. You mentioned it, you beat the defending champion yesterday. Are you now dreaming of winning the Swiss Championship this season?
That's certainly our ambition. As you know, 3 years ago, we came in 4th in the league. Then we came in 3rd. Last year, 2nd. So you can see the natural progression. So the ambition is definitely to win the championship. At the same time, we recognize it's a very competitive league. A lot of other clubs with a lot of talent also want to win the championship. So it will not be easy. We have a lot of work to do. We're still building the club, strengthening the club. But the ambition is clearly there, not only among myself, but our board of directors, Philip Regazzoni, Georg Heitz, Carlos de Silva, our coach, Mattia Crocitorti. Everyone, I think, is focused on getting better every year. We finished 2nd. Now we'd like to move up the next level. And so that's certainly the ambition. And, you know, we bought the club for that reason. We'd like to win the championship and get better every year and just see how far we can take things.
Buongiorno, Massimo Solari, Corriere del Ticino. 3 anni dal suo insediamento qui a Lugano. Il suo progetto oggi ritiene che sia dove sperava che fosse, dove credeva che fosse? Ci sono degli aspetti dove invece diciamo, l'FC Lugano è più avanti di quello che credeva, o invece magari ci sono dei cantieri, dei punti dove invece ha trovato dei rallentamenti, ecco, secondo quella che è la sua visione per il Lugano?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Thank you. I would say the club has exceeded my expectations from when I bought the club 3 years ago. To be in the Swiss Cup finals the last 3 years, to win the Swiss Cup a couple of years ago. As I mentioned, our progressive level of standings going from 4th, 3rd, 2nd. Playing in European competition, making the group stage twice. You know, I looked this morning in the UEFA Conference League. We're number 4 out of 36 clubs. Ahead of us is Chelsea, Fiorentina, some very good clubs. And so I think the club has performed beyond my expectations. I thought it would take longer to get to this level of performance. Are there areas we could improve? Yes. I mean, we're not perfect. This is still in building mode. So we can strengthen the squad, add more depth. And so we're always looking at that. You know, part of the vision we have is having a multi-club structure that creates certain advantages where we can invest more in scouting to feed both the Chicago Fire, FC Lugano, performance analytics to feed 2 clubs, move players across the roster. You've seen a fair amount of roster movement in Chicago. We've had Marin Harley Selassie, Alan Aragoni. Over this way, we've had Nacho Aliseda, Kasper Shabilko. So it's, I think, playing out nicely. Justin Reynolds spent time here, a Chicago Fire player, and now he's back in Chicago, improved. I would think Carlos and Mattia did a wonderful job raising Justin's game. And so I think we're still, you know, building that relationship. I think it's strong. You know, we can make it better. I'd like to see more player movement. I think would be terrific. And not only at the player level, you know, at all levels, performance, analytics, you know, all of these levels, I think we'll just be stronger, each club, if we operate as one versus totally separate. So yeah, but we can always, it's a very competitive sport. So I think we're always looking at acquiring more talent, adding more depth. But you can see yesterday, I think we're very competitive now, but we can certainly get better, and we want to do well in European competition, and so that's even a higher bar if you want to progress beyond group stage and have a deep run in some of the pan-European competition. So, you know, there's work to do, so this is a never-ending project, but I think, you know, we're very proud of the progress we've made over the past 3 years, and look forward to continually getting better. And to me, that's my philosophy, get better every day, excellence throughout the organization. And if you keep doing that over a long period of time, pretty soon you get really good. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, it's been 3 years now. I think we've made those progressive steps, but we want to keep pushing that and keep getting better. So more work to do. Happy with the progress to date, but more work to do.
I risultati ottenuti dal Lugano li ha appena citati lei in questi pochi anni. Come si spiega, se c'è una spiegazione, il fatto che il Lugano in pochi anni ha raggiunto questo livello, mentre Chicago si fa fatica, insomma, a ottenere i risultati?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I think, as I mentioned, FC Lugano has exceeded my expectations. I think we have terrific leadership here with the people I mentioned. And the Chicago Fire, you're right, to be honest, let's be candid. Our results have not met our expectations. We want to, at a minimum, make the playoffs in Major League Soccer, and we have not done that. So work to do. You know, we have a new coach and sporting director coming in to the next season. We have a new training center in Chicago coming online in December. And, you know, we're building out the facilities. So sports, it's not, there's not a playbook. You do A, B, and C, and instantly you get results. And so the best I can do is lay the foundation, you know, have the facilities, put the right people in place. I think we'll get there eventually. The timing is a bit uncertain. We got there a little quicker in Lugano than Chicago, but I have every confidence we'll get there in Chicago too. It just happened quicker in Lugano. Why that is, you know, I think one factor is, you know, Georg Heitz has been very experienced in the Swiss league. I think that's helped. He knew the league very well. And so bringing that level of experience, I think, has helped. We have a new director of football and head coach in Chicago, Greg Berhalter, who has just started. He's a former national team coach in the U.S. He's been a player in Europe, player in the U.S., coach in Europe, coach in the U.S., again, the national team coach. So he brings a tremendous amount of experience. And so we're hopeful he'll help us take that next step in Chicago. And as I mentioned, this new training center will be one of the best training centers in Major League Soccer, and I think globally. So it's about a $100 million investment, 5.5 fields. And so we're very excited, and I think this will help our players train better, attract talent, and help us take that next step. So we're pushing hard. We realize our results in Chicago aren't what they need to be, so we're trying hard to fix that and hope to get to the same level as Lugano very quickly. And I would also point out, in Major League Soccer, it's a parity league. There's not a lot of difference between the top and the bottom. And so you can make a big jump. Teams go from last to first. And in the U.S., there's a salary cap. You can spend so much for a team outside of 3 players, which are called designated players, where you can spend anything. You can bring Messi in and pay him a lot of money. And so that gives you some flexibility, but most of the teams are pretty constrained in what they spend. And so that creates a lot of parity. So a few little changes can take us from lower level to the top in a very, very short period of time.
Buongiorno, della Valle Teleticino. Ha citato Georg Heitz, il fatto che Heitz lascerà Chicago e non lavorerà più con Chicago avrà un influsso anche su Lugano?
So Georg Heitz came to me in August and said he wanted to come back to Europe. And I knew that would happen eventually. You know, when I hired Georg 5 years ago, he said, I eventually want to get back to Europe. And so I knew it was coming. And so he decided to come back, and the role that he would like in Lugano is at a board of directors role. So he'll be on the board of directors of FC Lugano, which I think is critical to have Georg involved in, you know, overseeing the club and then facilitating the relationship between Chicago and Lugano. He knows both organizations very well. I mentioned we have a new coach coming into Chicago, and the former coach, Frank Klopas, who is here, is now our vice president of football in Chicago. And part of Frank's role is to develop talent from the junior level to the academy to our reserve team to the first team, up and down, help find other talent, scout talent, but also to be a bridge between Chicago and FC Lugano. So between Georg Heitz and then having Frank Klopas move into this role, I think, that will help a lot. But we certainly want Georg very involved. As I mentioned, we have this multi-club vision that 2 clubs together are stronger than 2 individually. And so it will take Georg, Frank, and others to work collaboratively to get the most out of this relationship. And so Georg will still be very involved, though not at a day-to-day level.
Hello, Mr. Mansueto. Alan Kunz from Blake in Zurich. There are now quite a few proprietors, investors in Swiss football. Right now there are 4 in the Major League. There were a few in the past, but all failed. The 4 that we have right now, 3 are struggling with some, the other ones not very strong. And you have huge success from the beginning. So I think it's going to be tough for you to answer what do you do better than the other ones, but what do you do so well that you have that success in Lugano?
It's a really good question, and that you're right. I don't know that I know the answer to that. I really can't comment on what others are doing, why whatever approach they chose did not succeed. So I don't really have a window into what the others were doing. Again, why we succeeded here, I think we were fortunate in getting some really good people. I think it comes down to people. Success in sports, football, comes down to having the right leadership, the right people, at all levels of the organization. Again, so I would give, a ton of credit to Georg, for what he's done, building the operation, choosing, Mattia Crocitorti, Carlos da Silva, as sporting leaders, putting the roster together. Georg did a wonderful job at FC Basel doing that. And, it's come down to people. Had I chosen others who weren't as talented, as experienced, we might have the same results as what you pointed out. And I think it's like many things, where you come in, if you don't know the local situation, it's difficult from the outside. My main company is Morningstar. We operate in 30 countries around the world. So I have some experience on the business side about building operations in all kinds of countries. But you need a combination of, I think, global capability with local knowledge. If you just bring the global capability without the local knowledge, it often doesn't work. And so you really need to understand the league and how it works. Every league is different. The talent pool is very different. Georg, Sebastian Peltzer, was also very influential and helpful in identifying talent to bring in. And so, it's, putting the right players together, the right coaching staff. And so we're fortunate to have recruited and developed a lot of wonderful players. The current squad, and even ones who are not with us today. You look at Mohamed Amoura, that Georg and Sebastian found in Algeria, and was a wonderful player for FC Lugano. Went on to Belgium, did very well in Belgium, now is at Wolfsburg. And we've continued FC Lugano to benefit from his transfer. And so, we'd love to, and we have, Salar. Zan Salar was our striker last year, now is at QPR in the UK. And so having that line of transfer income, in addition to all the normal sponsorship, ticketing, lets us reinvest more back into the current operation. So all of those things came together, but I think if there's one answer to your question, it comes down to getting the right people. And you always don't get it right in football or in business in general. Everyone makes mistakes hiring people, but fortunately in Lugano we got it right, and we have some wonderful people leading the organization.
ancora Solari, Corriere del Ticino, ha menzionato, ecco, la volontà di incrementare ulteriormente, ecco, la collaborazione, ecco, ha più volte ripetuto questo movimento anche a livello di roster, di spostamento di giocatori, vista la situazione sportiva del Lugano, appunto le ambizioni, il fatto che è così vicino magari quest'anno a poter vincere il titolo, quanto c'è, qual è il rischio, ecco, che durante magari il mercato invernale ci siano dei giocatori che Chicago prelevi da Lugano, andando un pochino, ecco, a intaccare questa ambizione, o quanto, ecco, magari la partita di ieri l'ha convinta al contrario a dire no, cerchiamo di spingere al 100% in questa stagione per permettere appunto a Lugano di vincere il titolo, ecco, non lo so, portando altri giocatori o rinnovando dei giocatori chiave che ci sono qui a Lugano.
Yep. Good question. I think we're always looking to strengthen the squad, using the transfer window to do that, whether it's moving players from Chicago or Lugano. Sebastian Peltzer at this moment is in Africa, scouting talent, going to many countries, looking for talent. And so, absolutely, we want to push 100%, give it everything we have to win a championship. There's no guarantees, but always strengthening the squad. And so we've got a couple of levers, as you pointed out. We can look at Chicago, and vice versa. Maybe there's some Lugano players where we have extra depth in Lugano that could help Chicago. This is one of the things Frank Klopas will be looking at, and Georg, Sebastian can look at these questions. And then new talent. I think this is where Georg, our scouting organization, really excels. You look at some of the history with Georg, Mohamed Salah, found him in Egypt, now at Liverpool. I mean, case studies like that he's just done a remarkable job, a world-class job at finding talent, developing the talent, again, Amura, Salar, and we'd like to do more of that. And so we'll use, the transfer windows, and there's always a lot of talent globally, and they're out looking. And so I trust the leadership we have in place to manage that transfer window to the maximum extent to put us in an even better position to win the championship. I like your vision that we have a really good shot at winning the championship, so thank you. I agree with that. And but we'll use the window to increase our odds, increase the probability. So no guarantees. We'll see what they come up with. They have time. They're right now kind of hitting the pavement, looking for players. But, I was commenting over dinner last night just how different the squad is today than 3 years ago when we bought the club. There's so much more depth. Mattia has so many more options to go from the bench, and we're playing a lot of matches. We're playing the European competition, the league matches. We played Thursday, Boleslav and the Czech Republic. We're playing Sunday. We've got a match Wednesday, or Thursday now, I guess, in Zurich with Grasshoppers. So there's a lot of, pressure competitively, and we need some depth. And there's just much more depth that we have today. There was a lot of talent that didn't get a lot of minutes yesterday, but Mattia had options depending on how the game flowed. And so we want to continue to build that depth. And, there's some roles where we could add more depth. We could, use more depth in the striker position. So, there's certain positions that they're looking at, but I think a lot of roles, yesterday our fullbacks were not the number one starters, and they did phenomenal. Brogiard and Marquez, they were terrific. And we have Valenzuela and Zanotti, So there's a lot of depth in a lot of roles, but other roles we could use more depth. So they want to continue to look for talent, and I'm very supportive of that, and willing to invest if we find the right talent to do that.
Abbiamo parlato di mercato,
Yep.
nel senso di rinforzare la squadra. Io provo a girare un po' la questione relativa al mercato. Quanto è importante vendere giocatori per fare in modo che magari un domani il Lugano si autofinanzi e non debba essere Joe Mansueto a mettere soldi, ma che magari Joe Mansueto riesca magari anche a prendere qualche soldo dal Lugano. È qualcosa che nella sua testa, è qualcosa che si è già messo il cuore in pace e non succederà mai.
Well, I'm very much in favor of having Joe Mansueto not spend more money on it if we can avoid it. So I think that's a wonderful idea. We'll take that back. But no, it's important, that we use the transfer line to have more revenue to reinvest in the club. I think it's critical. And, I view this the same way as the Chicago Fire, that both these clubs are a platform for players. And if their ambition is to play somewhere else in the Premier League or the Bundesliga, that we'll support them in that vision. And that this can be a place that they may play for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. And if their ambition and their level of play is such that they can play in those competitive leagues, I think we're very supportive of that and encouraging of that. And that helps attract more talent to the club, that we don't just kind of lock up players and not sell them. But it makes, it's good for the club that we get revenue, that we can invest more, so Joe Mansueto does not have to put more money into the club. And then it's great for the player. They like to know that they're not bound. This is their final stop, that if they do well, Salar can go to England, Amura can go to Germany. And those are wonderful examples that I think even motivate the other players on the squad to perform at their highest level, because scouts are looking at Lugano. This is a source of talent that other clubs from around the world, certainly within Europe, can recruit from. And we become known as a great place to recruit from. And the Swiss League is very competitive, and it's very visible. And so the eyes are on FC Lugano across Europe. And I think that's motivating for the players. But again, it does, it's a double win. Again, it's a win for the player if they move on, and it's a win for the club if we're able to sell them at a profit and reinvest more into FC Lugano.
Le faccio una domanda che spesso ci si pone qui in Ticino, no? Ci si dice, ma Joe Mansueto vuole più bene a Lugano o a Chicago? In altre parole, Chicago è la prima squadra e Lugano la seconda? Esiste questa gerarchia?
Well, I love all my children. I have to say I love them equally. I can't pick one over the other. And I think it's like a family. Do you love your son more than your daughter? You can't really give an answer to that. You love them both a tremendous amount. And the key thing is the family, having both, in one household, so to speak. And, I think that makes it, the love for them, just the combined love increase. And then you see how they work together. And I think one of the joys of being, whether in business or in football, operating internationally, is just to see all the cultures. It's one thing I love about football. We have players from around the world, South America, Africa, Europe, all just coming together, uniting into one game. And then, to do that within our organization, just is a wonderful thing. And it's great to see, again, Europeans working with Americans, and just the collaboration is wonderful. So no, I don't love one club more than the other. I love them equally. So don't debate that question.
Can you put a number on how much money you have put into FC Lugano so far? I mean, last season alone it was around 20 million Swiss francs. Can you put a total number, or can you give us one? And can you also talk a bit more about your financial vision? I mean, you are a businessman.
Yeah.
At some point, this club, or are you willing to pay forever, more or less? Or what is your long-term vision in terms of financing what you're spending at the moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. Football is not the most lucrative sport at the moment. And I see it as an investment. I don't see it as just losses. That these are investments, and we're in growth mode. It's like a growth company. You're investing in the foundation, and, the payoff comes later, not today. You're right, the losses have been meaningful. We're also investing in the new stadium that's coming up that will come online in a few years. And thank you to the residents of Lugano for approving the stadium in the referendum a few years ago. And so we're investing more in the stadium and having hybrid grass instead of artificial turf. In terms of some of the seating to make it a great experience for the fans. So some of the numbers that you point to, there's some investment that we're making in the stadium that will subside. That's not all of that number, but it is part of it. But again, I view it more as an investment, and hopefully the value of the club increases. And that's been true with the Chicago Fire. It is not profitable at the moment, but fortunately the value keeps rising. And I think of it as if you're familiar with finance, there's something in the U.S. called a zero coupon bond, where you get no interest from the bond, but you get your principal back at a high number later. And so you get no interest. This is a negative coupon bond, where you're putting in money. Instead of getting paid interest, you pay in every year, and then hopefully the value at the end is greater to reflect all of those investments. And so that's my belief. And then I believe it's a good thing for the world. Again, I think, as I mentioned, football unites people, brings people from cultures around the world together, whether it's on the sporting side, the players, the fan base. And it's great. You could see it in the atmosphere last night. People coming together in Conferenza Stadium, just the locking arms, different backgrounds, coming together. And what a wonderful thing it is for the world, in such a world where there's such divisive politics. This is the U.S. more. To bring people together. Sports can do that in a way that politicians cannot. And so I just think it's a good thing for society, for the world, to have more experiences that bring people together in this age of smartphones and young children being isolated on screens. Sports brings them together, physically in a place and in a way that is lacking in many parts of our world today. And so, part of it is, there's a business side to all of this, but there's, I like to do things that are good for the world too, and I think sporting falls into that. If it can bring some joy to people's lives, that's a really good thing in these times.
Maybe we can also talk about attendances. Last night there were around 3,500 people in the stadium. It was a big game for the club. In every department the club has shown impressive growth in the last 3 years. But in terms of attendances, it's still more or less the same than when you started. Is that something you are happy with, or what could be done to improve the numbers?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm happy with that. No, I'd love to see more attendance. I would encourage all the residents of Lugano to come out and experience a game. I think if you go to one game, you'll get hooked and love it. It's a wonderful experience. And so, if the attendance was 3,000 to 4,000 last night, I will say in the stadium, if you asked me what the attendance was, it felt like much more than that. The fan base was so engaged, the supporters, our supporters, the away supporters, on their feet chanting. It felt like a much bigger crowd than the numbers you cited. So it felt more robust than that. But I believe you that was the attendance. And we'd love to see higher attendance. The new stadium has capacity for 8,000. And I think it'll be a much nicer stadium. I mentioned we're investing in more of the seating, some various club dining options that I think will help draw people to the stadium. We'd love to do more with even the away clubs. I know a lot of the away teams, the supporters will come here and make a weekend out of it. Lugano is such a beautiful city that they can come make a weekend out of it, maybe selling packages around that. So I think there's a lot we can do in the coming years to drive attendance much higher. I think as we continue to win on the pitch, that will help draw. And so, every year, step by step. But we're not content with the attendance numbers where they are. We want to drive them much higher. And again, 8,000 is the new stadium. Again, I think it'll be it'll be the best boutique stadium in Europe. It's a phenomenal experience. I think that'll help draw fans to the stadium as well. So we see an upward path as we invest more in the stadium, the fan experience, that can help drive attendance.
A proposito di stadi, ho letto che appunto intende anche investire in un nuovo stadio a Chicago, diciamo questo è il desiderio, quello di costruire uno stadio di proprietà finanziato completamente da lei, e leggevo però che di per sé gli stadi non sono un buon investimento, se ho letto bene le sue dichiarazioni, perché soprattutto se sono di proprietà del comune, ecco. Qui diciamo lo stadio sarà vostro, però rimarrebbe, ecco, in mano alla città. Come crede, ecco, di poter tra virgolette sviluppare, ecco, questo valore in uno stadio che non sarà al 100% di Joe Mansueto del Lugano, e in che modo, ecco, quello che intende fare a Chicago con la nuova struttura sarà differente da quello che immagina qui con il nuovo stadio?
Yep. No, good question. And so in Lugano, we're very proud to partner with the city. Mayor Folletti was at the game last night. I want to thank him for all of his support. And this is a partnership. This is not a stadium that's, although owned by the city, we've put additional money into the stadium to raise the level. So we've been given a shell of a stadium, a very nice stadium, but to make it a world-class experience, you know, we're investing more in that. Chicago's in a different situation. You know, I think you're right that I view sports stadiums as not the best investment. If you were looking globally at what to invest money in, you would not say, aha, I want to invest in a sports stadium. As you point out, I mean, they're big, they're very expensive, costly to maintain, and then they sit empty most of the time. And so I think it's an investment that team owners make somewhat reluctantly, in terms of it's a lot of capital, but if you want to have a world-class team, it's part of the, you know, the table stakes, what you need, the ante, what poker terms, you know, what you have to spend to kind of get there. So it's a necessary investment. You know, from a financial perspective, the return on capital is probably not the highest. In Chicago, our state is not and city is not in as strong a financial shape as Lugano. And so there's a lot of debt. Teachers need money, police officers need money, pension obligations. And so I don't think it's even realistic to go to the local government in Chicago and even suggest. And if it's not a great investment, you know, I feel it should be shouldered in the U.S., you know, by the sports team owner. And so that's the path we're going down. Otherwise, I don't think it would get done. And so I think if we want to get it done, we have to privately finance it. And so we just announced that recently. And so our team in Chicago is looking at parcels in Chicago. And it's a multi-year journey. Lugano is ahead of Chicago. But we hope to follow in the footsteps of Lugano and over time have what's called a soccer-specific stadium in the U.S. and Chicago. And that's, you know, the last piece of the puzzle in terms of facilities for the Chicago Fire. Not that it's the main topic today, but when I bought the club in Chicago 5 years ago, we were playing in a stadium in a hard-to-reach suburb. So we moved that to downtown, an iconic stadium, Soldier Field, but it's 62,000 capacity. It's a little too big for us. It's American football plays there. We have scheduling conflicts. So there's some limitations about that stadium. As I mentioned, we invested in this training facility. That's now done. And now that that's completed, our team can turn its attention to the stadium project and, you know, hopefully make progress on that. So different situations, but both clubs needed a new stadium. And so we've got, you know, that solved here in Lugano. Very excited about what the city, the residents have approved and partnering with the city. Chicago, earlier going, but we need to, you know, finish that in Chicago as well.
la sentivo parlare e faceva un ragionamento. Parlava con grande passione dei giocatori del Lugano, li conosce tutti, vede le partite. Parlava dei suoi soldi e diceva: lo so già che non difficilmente guadagnerò. E alla fine il mio ragionamento era: Joe Mansueto allora vede il calcio come un divertimento, come il suo divertimento, e non dimentico anche l'aspetto sociale che lei ha sottolineato, di vedere persone da tutto il mondo lavorare assieme, gente che va allo stadio. E ho percepito nelle sue parole come se questo sia un grosso divertimento per lei.
Yeah, I would agree. I do have a passion for the sport. I think it's the most exciting sporting experience, bar none. As you know, it's 90 minutes of nonstop action, and it's just, you're on the edge of your seat for 90 minutes, and it's as if time stands still. It takes you out of your world. You can leave the world behind, and you're just captivated in the game. And I just think it fits so well into a modern lifestyle. In the U.S., a lot of our sports are 3-4 hour experiences. It's a lot of time. And a lot of time, nothing is happening. There's not nonstop action. And so I think this is a much better experience. I think it's the best sport for children to be playing. They're running around, aerobic, building, teammate relationships, learning how to operate on a team, and learning all those life lessons that come through football. And so, it's a passion, both for getting kids involved in the sport. Here it's common. In the U.S., it's becoming more common. And then I just think it's a great sporting experience. So, it's fun. It's a passion. At my stage in life, I don't have to do this. If this was a headache, I wouldn't do it. I only do it because I enjoy it. It's a passion. And I try and invest according to my passions. And football is certainly one of my top passions.
L'ultima domanda per te.
Yeah. You've been talking a little bit about politics. I don't know if you're going to say that's a good question when I ask this question. But the 5th of November, we have politics there, and huge politics. Do you answer the question, what are you going to do that day? Who are you going to vote for?
No, I don't answer that question. In the U.S., it's split 50-50. No matter what you say, you're going to alienate 50% of the U.S. But I will say I voted before I came here. I'm going to be away on election day. After a week in Switzerland, I go to London for a week, so I'm not going to be in the U.S. on election day. So I did vote. I'm engaged, following, like I think most Americans, following the political process. But, one thing I believe in is trying to keep politics out of sports. Sports is a safe haven from politics. In the U.S., people are consumed by politics, especially now with this election. And, they have enough of that outside of football. There's no need for the football club to get weighed into politics, take a position on a candidate. And I don't think it's what people want from a sporting organization, to be active politically. And so I'm going to stay out of that. And, I've been asked by the leadership in Chicago, do we, congratulate the winner of the election? Do we, make us comment on the election? I said, no, just, stay away from that. Let's keep this a pure sporting experience. Leave politics for all the other media organizations that cover that. But we are a sporting organization. This is meant to bring joy and fun to people's lives, not to get into political discourse.
Bene, io vi ringrazio voi che siete intervenuti, grazie a Maria Cristina per la traduzione, grazie a Manuela e Alessia per l'assistenza tecnica, grazie anche a tutti coloro che ci hanno seguiti in diretta streaming sui nostri canali ufficiali e naturalmente grazie di cuore, penso di poter parlare a nome di tutti, grazie di cuore a Joe Mansueto per la sua squisita disponibilità e per la profondità degli spunti che ha offerto a chi è venuto oggi a parlare con lei. Grazie mille ancora.
Prego, grazie. Thank you.